Hello and welcome to another episode of P5Live Sessions. Are we ready to improvise code? We are. What are we going to get into tonight? We are going to continue on a little bit with a thread that's been exploring over the last few weeks, maybe 2 weeks, not so long, getting into some hydra plus P5. Hydra plus P5. There's all kinds of interesting territory to keep exploring here. So yeah, I want to play with this in a slightly different way than last time and see where it can take us, what kind of stuff it can do. There's so much to find out in this hybrid land. Last time it was all about having that hydra layer sit on top of everything. This time I think I'll use the hydra as a texture to be over 3D shapes, and then we'll maybe play with going back and forth and seeing what they do. So the first thing is to start out with a basic image of getting this stuff in, and I'm going to slowly import the bits and pieces instead of just starting off from a whole sketch. Eventually these are going to be demos living in P5Live. But we're not quite there yet, still kind of testing the waters and figuring out what does and doesn't need to be part of the template. So where am I? Where's this basic again? It's so tiny when it's set like this. There we go, hydra basic. So I'm inspecting and grabbing these things, getting them set up. Basically importing hydra, getting ready with a off-screen buffer. Create graphics. This could be interesting to play with how big this thing is, because this will affect like the resolution of the hydra that we have coming in. I'm going to clear and draw this texture. That's kind of enough from there. And then I'm going to start from scratch with a hydra thing. So let's first turn this off for a minute. Let's just get a shape on screen. We're drawing nothing. Let's get a box on there that is like 400. Oh, we need to put ourselves in 3D space. WebGL. All right. And let's rotate the thing just so that it has some movement to it and we can see things happening. So that's rotating in that axis. Let's rotate it in the Z axis. And maybe for now, let's have a background. No, it leaves a nice trace. No background. Okay, so we've got just a shape spinning around, and now to introduce some hydra stuff. The way I'm setting it up for P5Live is essentially anything within a hydra to hydra. I could say end for myself. Anything within this space is going to be updated without affecting the whole sketch. So it'll like listen to your changes there, but it won't even try to compile the P5 stuff. So let me see if it's working by just saying a osc.out. And I think it maybe helped to do it this style. Let's see if this works. And then if I turn this on and say grab that drawing, texturize it, there we go. Awesome. Yeah, so this is like, this will probably have to become a snippet, maybe, so that you could be working on any code and then just sort of add this on the fly, because it's just a couple lines. Maybe there's an even slicker way to add this on demand. But that's the basic setup for this workflow. And then, of course, we probably want to change those numbers. Maybe slow things down and get some color in there. A little bit more color, saturation. And just kidding. Something like this, fewer bars. So that's like the very basic, and then you could go and do all kinds of fun stuff in Hydra, but last time I think I got a little lost just hanging out here, playing like a noob, not really knowing what I was doing, and I want to kind of lean it a little bit down here to say we could use this as a texture. Let's keep doing stuff in 3D down here in P5, and then go back and forth. So it's always fun putting yourself in a giant sphere, and interesting to use the same, we're using the same texture, and technically I could be swapping back and forth, and I could have the outside be like normal material, and then we kind of lose track of the fact it's even a sphere. But interesting that, or that could be, maybe I move it up a line and then move this texture down here for the sphere just to test that out. Let me hide my menu. Let me actually give this thing a name so we can start working with it. P5, let's say round 2. Okay, so that's playing with like 2 different textures, but actually I'm interested just to use this the whole time, so I don't really need the normal material. And it can be interesting. Yeah, actually I didn't even have to turn off stroke. That's interesting. I expected to have to say no stroke, but the hydra, this texture is already covering it up. That's interesting. What if I explicitly said I want a stroke? There we have a stroke. Okay. So we can have it if we want it, but by default it's going to be kind of hidden. That's interesting. Okay, we'll go back to off. What would be really nice is actually to be able to have multiple of these things, which technically could work, probably. Actually, that'd be interesting to try. I haven't even done that yet, to have multiple instances. That might be a bad idea to try and do right now, but we can slowly try it. Maybe first I'll try a super low res, low poly. If that makes a difference. It might not make a difference. Maybe it does if it was drawing something else like Voronoi. Then this should be like really low res because it's only 30 pixels by 30 pixels, whoops, versus 300 by 300. There we go. So then we have higher resolution. We need some orbit control. Orbit control. What happened to my C? Orbit. I lost my shift key. Ah, there we go. Control 5. So that we can spin around and look at this thing. Ah, and maybe there is a stroke. Maybe we just couldn't see it with the previous shading. Back to no stroke. Yeah, so that's a Voronoi versus oscillator. Can go back and override it. That's kind of fun, just being able to like turn a line on and off because it's just reading it top to bottom. Maybe it's interesting to do a dot colorama. Whoa, crazy. I have a feeling a lot of my slowly walking through this thing is a lot of whoa, crazy. Oops. 100. Wild. Yeah, it has an interesting kind of speaker system drop looking thing. So again, let me test this at low res. At 30 has an interesting blur. Or I could go up to 500. I mean, I could go much bigger and let the fan kick in. If I said width and height, then it would be way sharp, I'm guessing. Sharper. Maybe on the back it's being stretched a whole lot, so it doesn't make a big difference. Okay, let me go back to 300. But it would be interesting to try to... I don't know. I don't know if I can have multiple instances of hydra now that I think about it. I think I'm not set up for that because this is in a global space. I think I first would have to play with getting rid of the global space for this, because it would be interesting. I wonder if... Yeah, I guess at the least I could do manipulations to this PG. Like, what if the PG is this thing? It's constantly getting updated, And then I wonder if just before I went here, I did like PG filter, invert. Hey, cool. Yeah, so we can do filters to the thing. I don't know if that's that big a deal, but kind of interesting that then you could say like gray scale. Just kidding. Is it gray? There we go. So then you could have like a color inside, grayscale outside. That's kind of interesting. Let me change this also to a sphere. Now let me go back to a box. It can be interesting playing with a mask over this thing. I noticed that a while back. Mask. OSC. We're seeing right through the thing. I think it'd be interesting to have the layer itself maybe be the mask. Or actually, I take it back. Maybe that has to happen after colorizing. There we go. Now we can see through it, I think. Hard to tell. What if I clear this thing all the time? There we go. Awesome. So yeah, if I'm not clearing, then these are just like adding up and adding up and adding up on top of this screen buffer. So it becomes a really opaque layer. But if I don't do that and clear it, then I get to see through this thing, and that's pretty interesting. Let me make it a little bit easier to see through. 3, 7. What if I use the default? Interesting, then we get these kind of stripes. Nope, I think 3 and something slow, then we can kind of sometimes see through this thing. Maybe I make it even bigger. I should try again putting the mask in front of the colorama, see what happens now that I'm clearing. What did it do? I think did it do anything? It did, it got darker. That got lighter. Okay, maybe it's better having it before it, so we can just sort of see through the thing without affecting like multiply or so. Lots of different things. Something super trippy that I need to try out as well is feeding this image back into Hydra. So even if I turn off the sphere and I just have this square, feeding what we're seeing back into this. I did that once before during the co-coding, and we got this really wild like illusion of 3D. So I'm curious if I can find that again. And to do that, I have to set up the source init thingy, and actually did that last week. I can probably go inspect this sketch, and it was this thing, this down here, source init. Let's see if this works. So hopefully, yep, I lost the background. Hopefully like this, I now have a source that's constantly grabbing what we see, and I'm going to try and mix that in there too. So I'm going to, before or after the mask, I'll do it maybe after everything. Blend SO a little bit. There we go. Yeah, so this is pretty trippy. We're seeing, let me hide that. We're basically seeing, we'll go 100%. We're seeing a copy of what we're drawing on what we're copying. Kind of looks like a sonogram there. Depends on what we're drawing there. So let me test this out and actually just do like a, I'm going to turn this one back on so we just have these bars, but mix in that layer. Maybe it is good to have the sphere, so we have, whoa, okay, whoops, sorry about that. Yeah, but interesting. There we can see the things there. We just needed a bit of a more full background. I'm going to change this to 0.5, 0.6. I have no idea what the right, 0.4. Yeah, it's a question of what the right values in there are. And maybe it's not blend. Maybe it's, should use layer. There it kind of is. But it's nice to get first this. Is layer having another value? I'm not so sure. So there is that, and then I add this, and it quickly turns down. I wonder if layer has such a value. If I go 0, 1, cut, paste. Nope, it goes crazy fast. Yeah, we're losing all the color in there for some reason. Maybe because the sphere is not a part of it. Whoa, no, do that again. Where is all the color going? Let's try blend again. There is blend. Slowly it arrives. Slowly arriving a bit more, then it goes too far. And that, what about like a modulate. There we go. I think that's what I was looking for, to modulate this so it's like just being added. Yeah, and we can get some super crazy illusions of 3D in there if I find the right spots to hang out. Let me make this like 15. Maybe not. Maybe it's better if it's who knows. Yeah, we get these really interesting like faux 3Ds. Okay, layer doesn't have opacity. Good to know. But we have multiply and add and subtract. Yeah, so I'm getting this. It's interesting. This thing is getting distorted. That makes sense. I'm getting this egg shape because my screen is a different ratio than our image there. So maybe I should use a ratio of our width and height. So I'm going to tell PG to be like the width divided by 4, and maybe this to be height divided by 4 to keep the ratio the same. There we go. Maybe it's still squished. I can't quite tell yet. 3, 5. Is it squished? It's totally squished. Why are you squished? Maybe because the shape I'm drawing on is stretching it. It's a square. My screen is not a square. Anyways, yeah, what I was also curious to do and mess with was also to play with some like streaking of these images around the canvas. I think it could be interesting, kind of like a LED stick, to use hydra with its coloring as like the LED in a way. That could leave some interesting reminiscence on the page. 600. Yeah, it's not quite so clear yet. Let me try once. Let me go back to the one that I had before and say modulate instead. Whoops. Ooh, interesting noise. Yeah, it's really fun not having any idea what I'm doing, getting to have all kinds of guess and check and be surprised with the order of events, that all these things can go in the front or behind a function and just sort of be surprised. Yeah, the mask does something there. I'm going to get rid of it for a sec. Yeah, there. Can, at the right angle, can get this feeling like that thing has actual depth going into it. something to keep exploiting and figure out how to use. Okay. I'm going to go back to this one, I think, and maybe disable the modulate for a minute. And yeah, try this other plan. Maybe actually I'll go back, put it how it was. Let's clone this thing. So I remember to clone. Now, because I'm drawing these layers, these textures, I can take snapshots every so often with Control S. And now I'm going to keep playing with this and yeah, explore other 3D shapes with this as a texture. So I'm also curious if this was a plane, then we would just have this three-dimensional plane, which could be interesting to play with. I think that's something also to explore, not while orbit control is on or you're rotating. Maybe I play as well with giving a plane. Ooh, that's kind of cool, of course. Plane with planes breaking planes with the Z index. So one of these things could be way big. Let's go width divided by 2. Height divided by 2, not so big. Give this the exact same values. And let those be two shapes breaking into each other's space. And then it's interesting maybe turning off all of this like constant rotation. So like this, they're the exact same. And instead do a rotate X radians. Need to slow the thing way down. Times 5. Times 15. Speed the thing up. And like this start to get some Z index fighting. Maybe I should slow it back down and let it go even more, 35. And maybe the thing should be even bigger. This is all about rotating this one that's down below. Maybe I let this one be full screen, and there's always the square kind of hanging out in the middle. It's kind of abrupt. And maybe it, yeah, so it's swinging back and forth, but maybe it's also interesting to let it just constantly swing around, which I guess it was already doing. No, it wasn't, because I wasn't doing the y-axis. Rotate y. If I turn this off, then this thing will constantly keep swinging. We'll probably have to slow it down a bit. There will be like a harsh moment when it splits past that other pane. Not so harsh. I guess it's only harsh once. There, right there. Yeah, but it's really nice tracing these images out, getting this kind of illusion of a tunnel or depth. Maybe it's about having a couple of them go in their own directions. So maybe I have another plane with another rotation and maybe a push and pop so it's not affecting anybody. Push, pop. And do a rotate, but in the opposite direction. Although that's a small one. Yeah, if it's worth having it be the small size or also be the big size. And then I should add a mask because like this, it's covering everything up. Yeah, I think I let this thing be large. And they probably have to be slightly different speeds, otherwise we're a little too in sync. And I'm gonna add a mask in there. Dot mask, let's have an OSC and let that do its bars. and then change it to like a 2, a 5. Can't quite see them yet. Ooh, there. Yeah, and at a certain point, we'll have to put this modulate back on and let what's happening be fed into what is happening, what we're seeing. I'm going to get rid of these. All the stuff we're not using, we don't need this. Although that gray is kind of cool to be able to tell one of them to be different than the others. There is the gray being thrown in there. Yeah, it's got a couple nice moments. It's going way too fast. I think everything needs to slow down. I'm going to say 3. Actually, I'm going to do like a times 0.2 just so I can play with these numbers. Times 0.1. And be patient and watch this thing spin around and see what it's doing. And get rid of the... I already got rid of the gray. Never mind. Interesting where those panels passed each other at just such a moment. If I jump these bars way up higher so we have far more of them. Maybe interesting to allow this to have some other coloring in there. Interesting, when those are the same value, we get back to that chromish color when the mask has the same oscillation speed. Interesting to then modulate in OSC, oscillator. And try one more time a modulate OSC. That was quite fun in the past to do double modulations. But then I think have to rotate once in the middle and spell it right. Yeah, we didn't give it an exact amount. Go back to 1. Get some wavy bars. Yeah, it's a question if that, what is this like with this modulate versus without, whoops. And what if I rotate before I modulate? Or without any modulation? And try a repeat to see what happens repeating these things. So they're just repeated on a y-axis. And is the rotate doing anything? It is. Can push this to some crazy number to get some moire effects. Moire. Yeah, it's an interesting kind of soft moire. This interesting that this I maybe used my mouse already and I've been dragging. That's why I moved us off center. So it's a question if I should disable orbit control, but then of course it's fun to be able to rotate some other axis and see what this thing is like at 90 degrees. Leaving tons of super tiny particle artifacts. Yeah, but quite interesting how these things are really masked. We can see through them. I'm going to try and bring us back to where we were. Okay, interesting. At a large enough number, it kind of collapses and goes back. Yeah, these things can be in and out of sync with each other. But interesting, it's not... Oh no, there's the mask. Ooh, that's the... Right, the speed of this oscillating mask going through it, shifting down. And if I bring back my sphere, then we stop leaving traces of those other images. So I'm going to turn off the sphere. And do something else with some 3D shapes. Maybe it's time to see this on a donut or on a complex, like a vertex shape. Ooh, that's quite interesting on a donut because of the bars that it has. I'm going to slowly turn off a couple of these things. If I get rid of all of those, then I have just this line donut. Which looks quite interesting when it's not rotating. I'm going to turn off that rotation for a sec and force it just to be there. And zoom into this thing. Translate 0, 0, 300. The opposite way, we're behind it. 400, 500. And now we're like right at the edge of being inside of it. So we have this interesting cone-like shape. Yeah, it's really interesting to be inside of a donut. I'm going to put us inside of the thing. I'm going to say the torus is height by, I don't know, like 400. And we have to rotate it once. Rotate Y, 90. I'm going to start everything over. It might be too big. Maybe it doesn't even have to be that big. There we go. Half the height. Yeah, really interesting being inside of this thing and getting the bending of the geometry through there. And then it would be interesting to rotate this thing. Again, I think on the Z-axis. Yep, but slower. And maybe in the opposite direction. Or not. Yes. And then even translate it a bit to be like, to kind of make like an infinite running space. I'm going to translate the y-axis. I'm not sure how much, 200, the opposite. 300, 400, 300. It's a question, this value, how thick this thing should be. And play with, let's feed the thing back into itself, see what happens. I'm gonna turn off orbit control for a minute. So when I click, I don't move the camera. And maybe after I repeat, noise. All right, lots of noise. Before the mask. Interesting. Now it looks like all kinds of DNA sequencing flowing through these pipes. Let's try putting it after the mask. Similar but different. After the repeat, similar to before. Okay, maybe I try something totally different. What if I just feed the whole thing into itself? If I say source S0 dot out 01. So now we see nothing, but I need to feed something into that. We need to get something into that source. So if I turn this back on and then turn this off, we're losing everything. So I can't just have source. I don't know if there's alpha with the source. Nope. So I think I need to play with, yeah, something has to be in there. Maybe it's about, maybe it's enough just having a stroke on the thing. If I give this, instead of no stroke, where's no stroke? If I give this a stroke, there we go. Wow, then we go the other direction. So this could modulate itself. Could sort of go back and forth. It's going a little fast. I could also do a random one times 255 floored. This might be too chaotic. Kind of wanted to give a pulse in there every once in a while. Nope, and then we lost it. Because we can't floor it, we need to round it. There we go. Whoa, sorry. Nope. I dig it. Might be seizure inducing. Let's try something else. Let's do a layer. Now, how is that different? I don't know. Probably because it's not doing anything. I don't think we can start out with a layer. I'm going to make a Voronoi again and instead add the layer. Nope, bad idea. I'm going to multiply the layer. I'm going to modulate the layer. I was optimistic I could just get kind of a trippy feedback, but I guess it kind of makes sense that it just quickly becomes mush and gets washed out. Yeah, not quite doing... What if I add it again? Nope. Goodbye. Subtract. Nope. All right, let's go back to those things that we had. Can give them some pixelation, could be nice. Whoops. Interesting to turn these things into quite big shapes with a large pixelation. I'm not quite sure if there's 2 values to pixelate. I think so. Maybe not. And if I do it after the rotation, not so much. After the repeat, then we just have pixels. Nope, before it was more interesting. And let me bring back one of the planes, the small plane. Okay, that's interesting to see. That's what's being drawn over this texture. So let's draw some other shapes in this. Maybe it's interesting to have some spheres kind of running in this space with us. I'm going to say we have a sphere that's like 50, 150, 100. It's right in the center. So if I translate it to be 0, 500, too much, 300, there it is, 200. How tall is this thing? It says it's 500. Oh yeah, 500 might be right. And then it should be resting on the floor of this thingy. I'm guessing it's right on the floor. Is it? No, maybe not. Maybe it needs to be further. 600, 700. And then it could be interesting to make this thing run in the opposite direction. So I translate, before I'm going to rotate. Rotate Z. Radians minus frame count. Just kidding, positive frame count. There we go. Whoosh. No idea what the right amount is. It should be 800. I'm going to make the thing a bit smaller. And maybe temporarily give it a normal material so we can see it clearly from the rest. That's a neat streak that it leaves right at that last second. Yeah, maybe this thing should be going way slower in the opposite direction. I think point 3, 4 is stuck. 4, 5 is slowly going in the opposite direction. And I think I'm going to add a few of these things. And so now there is a bunch and they need some push and pop. And I should have cloned a while ago, because this is now walking far away from where it was before. Oh well. So now they're all the same, and we need to do some more differences between them. So they should have a... If I do rotate Y... No, maybe I just push them a little bit here. If I give that a 20, a 40... Interesting, that has no effect. Okay, it's the Z. Interesting. And minus would be on that side. Okay, cool. So I'm going to give these a sine of frame count times 200 slowed down and make each one unique. And also have to give these things an offset, an additional offset, so that they are running at different speeds from each other. Maybe this initial rotate should be something like I times 150 plus. And maybe they should go a little faster, then they'll look like they're racing through this thing. We're building like a weird, I don't know, some kind of Marble Madness meets trippy vortex. And they should probably have their own unique speeds, because it's kind of boring if they're all the same. So yeah, might as well also just use I here. I could say frame count. I don't know, it's a question if I should go, I'm not going to use random too much, so I could just set a random seed and then I get to use random a whole lot. Random seed 1. I need to burn a random once, so I'm going to say stroke random 255 and then no stroke. Whoops, killed it. No stroke. Okay, there's this weird thing. Maybe it's fixed. I'm using the newer version of P5, but there was like you have to burn a random. And now I can say times random from 0.2 to 1.5. So some of them will be going much faster than the others. Maybe even faster. Leave some interesting streaks. Maybe I should also tweak their colors from the other. pg.filter invert. If I can do that just once before I get down here. I don't think it's working. I don't think that has an effect. It did. There it is. Or is it inverting everything? Not quite sure. Let me get rid of the mask for a minute. Ooh, with more color, it's kind of nice having the full saturation, so I'm gonna throw the mask off to the side. That one is going awfully slow down there. Ah, true, because it needs to have something over 0.4, because 0.4 is going in the other direction. So like 4, 5 at least, onward up. And these don't have to be such a fixed amount. They could be random 500, just some different amount, random 1500. And if I turn off the sphere for a minute, the torus rather, then we get these, we can see what these things are doing. If I re-enable orbit control, I can have a side view and see what's going on. That's kind of fun. They're inside that donut, so you can't see it unless you peek and like find a side where you break through the wall. There's all this action happening in there and you don't, there we go. Like so, it's a bit more like one of these tracks for a bike. A velodrome. Velodrome, I think. That's kind of nice versus the first perspective, which means we should be rotating this thing. And I have no idea, maybe at this point. Rotate X radians frame count times 0.1. That's the wrong axis. Or is it? I'm not quite sure. It's interesting, except we're going to fall outside of the place. Ooh, then we get that view. That's interesting. Something else should be happening there whenever you get that view. Could send another marble going around the torus. So every once in a while you would see something going through there. Of course, it'd be interesting to have more of these things. Let's have 10 and make them all random sizes. Random 40 to 100. Maybe random 20 to 400. And And actually I should know their size first so that I know. It doesn't matter. They don't have to be sitting directly on the thing. If I said 1800, I have a feeling they're on the outside now. Hard to see because this thing is so big. Yep, there they are, orbiting on the outside. Not what we want. They should go back inside. But it would be nice to have some orbiting, at least one of them orbiting around the outside. So I'm going to turn off this for a minute. I have about 10 minutes. I'm going to quickly get one orbiting around this donut. So that thing is doing that. And we need a sphere that's like 100. There it is in the center, maybe only 50. And we are going to rotate this thing. Let's see, we're going to rotate this thing on which axis? I think the x-axis. Rotate x, radians, frame count. Just kidding, now it's just spinning it on its own little axis. Oh no, but I think it's a question if that's the right one. Nope. Z. Nope. Y. I think Y is the axis, and then I have to translate this thing and say translate, and it needs to be as big as the donut is, so it needs to be, I guess, 1,000. And then we have to wait. Oh, there it is. It's freaking out. No, that didn't work to zoom out like that. Where is this thing? What are you doing? No, you know what? It needs to be outside of all of this action, I think. I think it has to be independent from it. Push, pop, paste. Hey, I just saw the chat. How to install... No, I unfortunately don't have any YouTube videos yet walking through details of the README. A question came up in the chat about how to install... Whoops, not... We want the normal menu. How to install P5Live offline. I just quickly show you where in the README or on GitHub. It's down at the very, very bottom under offline server. Is the very basics, but I will be making tutorials soon. I hope to make some video tutorials walking through how to set some of this stuff up, because there's all kinds of features in there that I need to describe in more detail, because they're in the README, but no one reads the README. Or they do, but it's too long. And yeah, coming soon, hopefully. Can't say exactly when, but I'll make some short modular videos for some of these features. Unfortunately, I lost the marble. Is it back? It's not back. Where is this thing? Oh no, it is there. It's sitting right there. Or is it? No, I'm looking through it. Where did it go? Super strange. Where is that? Ah, there it is. It's sitting right there. Why are you down there? Ah, because I moved the whole torus. Ah, okay, we're minus 300. Minus 300. There we go. That's the center. Okay, I don't know why I really wanted to have this thing spin around here, but I thought it would be interesting. There. That's almost it. Let me see, where are we if we're on the inside? Where is this thing? No, it's there. It's going down. It's not quite orbiting enough. Because I think it should first do this, then it does that spinning, and then it needs to translate. Translate 0, 500, the size of the torus. Let's see if that works. I think I'm back where I was at the start. If I say 10, 20, slowly move this thing. Ah, this might be the way. Maybe I was using the wrong one. Yeah, there we go. It was the X. So I think it should be, technically, I think it should be either 800 or 5. Ah, maybe 400. Where did you go? 200. I've lost that donut. There it is, it's back. 150. Where are you going? 200. There it is. Have to keep track of it. Ah, wait, but it's... No, it's not doing what we wanted to do. Okay, I'm going to try this. I think it could be 400, I'm going to guess. Otherwise, I give up, and we have to leave it alone. I see it out there. Okay, is it 800? Whatever, we're going to leave that donut alone. Instead, we are going to just let it hang out there and be this cool little ball that just like sits in the center. We have to do this translate, go back there. There we go. So if anyone accidentally pops their head out there, they'll get this cool thing. Ah, that could also do this. It could also go 200. No, 0. This way, 200. Minus 200 comes towards me. 400. Yep, let's just send this thing back and forth. 600 and slow it down. Okay, back to where things were. And I turned on this rotation. There we go. So if you happen to go outside accidentally, you'll see this weird little thing doing something out there. So you're entertained, and then you come back into this track, and it seems like everything's going backwards, but I guess that just has to do with the rotation that we have at the moment. I'm going to attempt to put the layer back into it with a modulate and see. I'm hitting orbit control. I kind of want to avoid hitting orbit control. Let's start it over once. Wow. Wow. Interesting. What if I did modulate scale SO.1? I don't think that's a thing. Or is it a thing? Modulate hue. I need to remember to bring out a little cheat sheet with this. Interesting. I think it's using itself to modulate the pixels, the pixelation of it, if I get it right. But maybe it's interesting to do a blend. And then the question is, at what point of the process? Just before it goes out? Ooh, that gets some interesting kind of wispy softness on everything. Yeah, I think everything is going backwards. Because I think we have to rotate somehow all the way around. Maybe this has to be a... I added some... maybe because I was... Oh no, now it's going in the right way. It just depends on how we are rotated. All right, we've hit an hour. We have these fancy little things flying through space. Just before we go, let's get the fan to go nuts and have a bunch of these things running. Let them be even smaller to this size. Now 100 is good. And it's some kind of like what my processor is doing. We built a visualization of what's going on in there as it tries to render this stuff. Yep. So this has been some more Hydra plus P5. Hope you enjoyed. Yeah, have fun playing with these kinds of things, and feel free to share if you find some interesting combos between there. There's an update coming soon for P5Live, soon, which will fix a couple little things and introduce some demos. So thanks for watching. See you next time.